Welcome to the future of humanity. Science is rapidly approaching singularity as physics has recently formulated a revolutionary new theory of everything, which unifies all the fundamental forces in nature under a single force. Nassim Haramein was the first to formulate a unified field theory based upon sacred geometry. Garrett Lisi independently formulated a similar theory which showed a complete set of theoretical particles and their interactions with one another when rotated through various charge dimensions. All this arising from a purely geometrical structure called E8. Critics of this theory have pointed out that some mathematical implications of the E8 Lie group predict certain gravito-electromagnetic phenomena that aren't observed in nature. However, there are certain scientists who claim these effects do exist in nature, yet their work has been highly criticized by overly aggressive opponents in the scientific arena. Some have even disappeared after having their companies bought out and are now believed to be working for secret government black operations. But perhaps the most fascinating revelation of this new theory of everything comes with the discrete topological expansion into helical structures of atomic nuclei. If placed in succession, these form a Fibonacci spiral based on phi, the golden ratio, another important facet of sacred geometry. This manifests itself into a new periodic table of elements based on a spiral or cone instead of Dmitri Mendeleev's table. Walter Russell was the first to arrange the chemical elements in a spiral pattern, yet he failed to connect this to a physical theory of everything. Now that we have this unification, it needs to be studied and tested rigorously. I strongly believe that this simple, beautifully elegant explanation is the most illuminating one ever stumbled across by science and philosophy alike. But sacred geometry is nothing new. Our entire DNA, the double helix, is based upon this same beautiful geometry. And the more that we study these things and learn about them, the closer we will be to understanding the significance behind the underlying nature of the universe.
The origins of electrogravitics can be traced back to Nikola Tesla's work with high-voltage shock discharges at the turn of the 20th century, and somewhat later to Thomas Townsend Brown's relatively unpublicized discovery that electrostatic and gravitational fields are closely intertwined. Unfortunately, the electrogravitic effect has for the most part been ignored by mainstream academics, because the phenomenon isn't anticipated by either classical electrostatics or general relativity. Thomas Townsend Brown was born in 1905 to a well-to-do Zanesville, Ohio family. At an early age, he displayed a keen interest in space travel and dreamed of one day traveling into space himself. His discovery of the electrogravitic phenomena occurred during his high school years when his interest in space travel led him to toying with a Coolidge tube, a high-voltage X-ray emitting vacuum tube. Brown had the insight to mount the tube on a delicate balance to investigate whether it might produce any thrust. To his surprise, the tube moved every time that it was turned on. Ruling out X-rays as the cause of this mysterious force, he traced the effect to the high voltage he was applying to the tube's plates. After additional experiments, Brown eventually developed an electrical capacitor device, which he termed the gravitator. One version consisted of a wooden box 2 feet long and 4 inches square that contained a series of massive electrically conductive plates made of lead and separated from one another by electrically insulating sheets of glass, which served as the capacitor's dielectric medium. When energized with up to 150,000 volts of direct current, Brown's gravitator developed a thrust in the direction of its positively charged end. Brown entered the California Institute of Technology in 1922 and began establishing himself as a first-class lab man. His goal was to win over his professors so he could show them the results of his experiments and hopefully get them interested in the electrogravitic phenomenon. He had some of his equipment from his laboratory in Ohio shipped out to California, hoping to demonstrate the effects to his professors. He sent each of his professors invitations, invited them to come witness his experiment. Unfortunately, none of them showed up. Brown would later leave Caltech heartbroken and attend college back in Ohio at Denison University. In 1928, Brown published a paper on the Biefeld-Brown effect using the name of one of his professors, Dr. Alfred Biefeld. It is uncertain whether Dr. Biefeld had any actual influence on the experiments or on the production of the paper itself. These reported effects have been excused, ignored, and even ridiculed by mainstream science. According to Wikipedia, the Biefeld-Brown effect is a result of ion wind and not a gravitational effect. To support this statement, they cite vacuum chamber experiments carried out by the Mythbusters television show and another conducted by Dr. Martin Tajmar. They, however, fail to make any mention of conflicting experimental results. In 1955 and 1956, under the sponsorship of the French government, Thomas Townsend Brown conducted a series of vacuum chamber experiments at facilities made available by Société Nationale de Constructions Aéronautiques du Sud-Ouest, a Paris-based aeronautical corporation. There, Brown flew a pair of miniature saucer-shaped airfoils in a high vacuum of less than 1/billionth of an atmosphere. According to alleged witness reports, not only did the discs propel themselves more efficiently inside of a vacuum, but they also sped faster since without ion leakage they could be energized with greater voltages. So despite what the science police who monitor Wikipedia have to say, the verdict on the Biefeld-Brown effect is not quite so cut and dry. Without further experimentation and analysis, it is impossible to tell whether this is an elaborate hoax on the part of Thomas Townsend Brown or a scientific cover-up of the electrogravitic technology. One thing is for certain, the government and military seem to be hiding something. In its March 9, 1992 issue of Aviation Week and Space Technology magazine, they made the surprising disclosure that the B-2 Advanced Technology bomber electrostatically charges its exhaust stream and the leading edges of its wing-like body. Although these disclosures were framed in the context of enhancing the B-2's radar invisibility, it is believed that they are in fact part of an electrogravitic drive capability. Aviation Week obtained this information from a small group of renegade West Coast scientists and engineers who were formerly associated with Black Research Projects, which are defense research projects that are so secret that even their very existence is classified. Northrop, the prime contractor for the B-2, had been experimenting with applying high-voltage charge to aircraft hulls since at least 1968, when at an aerospace sciences meeting held in New York in January of 1968, scientists from Northrop's NORAir division reported that they were beginning wind tunnel studies on aerodynamic effects of applying high-voltage charges to the leading edges of high-speed aircraft bodies. Similar research was carried out in 1965 by the Grumman and Avco corporations. Interestingly, in 1994, Northrop bought out and merged with Grumman. Brown also called attention to this effect in his 1960 electrokinetic apparatus patent, which describes using a flame jet generator to place a high-voltage positive charge on a needle-like electrode at the front end of a rocket. Aerospace companies later put Brown's suggestions into use. A spike was placed on the nose of a rocket and caused to emit a high-voltage arc. Wind tunnel studies showed that the resulting electric field pushed the bow shock front away from the nose of the rocket so that it no longer contacted the main body of the missile, and hence substantially reduced the air drag. Now, there's a big difference between using high-voltage electrostatics to reduce air drag versus the breakthrough that scientists and gravity researchers have been waiting for. Or maybe they've just been ignoring it all along. Either way, the information I have just provided you with should be enough to warrant a further investigation. According to Dr. Eugene Podkletnov, high-voltage electrostatic fields produce a polarization of the vacuum energy density, or a polarization of the subatomic particles which constitute the vacuum, and thereby produce gravitational effects. There is also apparently more than one way to achieve this.
I will be posting the complete, unabridged, and exclusive interview with the elusive Dr. Eugene Podkletnov very shortly, so please stay tuned for that. Please check the video description for additional links and sources by clicking More Info above right. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to rate 5 stars and subscribe to my channel. This is Alien Scientist speaking. If you are listening, then you are the resistance. Please feel free to download and share this video. The information is too important to keep secret any longer. Now that I've turned half of my viewers away by telling the truth about the physics behind free energy, I am going to attempt to redeem myself and re-grab those viewers' attention with a remarkable concept for producing a constant voltage without violating the second law of thermodynamics, a so-called infinite battery. Basically, there are trillions of electromagnetic waves traveling around and through us at any given time, all different frequencies, all different all different amplitudes. Take a radio, for example. The electrons inside of the metal of a radio antenna are constantly bombarded with all these different frequencies of electromagnetic waves. These cause the electrons inside the antenna to oscillate up and down at the frequency of the waves hitting it. A radio's tuning device is simply a capacitor which varies its capacitance frequency when you turn the tuning knob, allowing only specific frequencies to be fed through. But basically, you can move your head out the way and put a radio where your head used to be, so therefore that's proof that these waves are going through our bodies right now. They're going everywhere. They're all over. We can't see them because they're different frequency than our eyes can see, but we're constantly being bombarded with all these different frequency electromagnetic waves at all the time. Now the trick is to turn all these into a coherent stream and to get energy from them somehow. So in electronics there is what is called a diode, which is made of positively and negative doped silicon plates which touch each other. The electric current traveling across a diode can only flow from positive to negative. If you run the current the opposite way, negative to positive, the diode separates from the electron interactions on the materials inside, and it flips the switch to off, basically. This is different than a light emitting diode. A light emitting diode will emit light across if you hook it up the right way, but if you reverse polarize a light emitting diode, it becomes a light detector. Kind of interesting. So basically, current can only travel across a diode in one way, and this is the same circuit that they have inside those shake-up flashlights that have no batteries. They just have a magnet inside, and you shake them up. Those things run forever. So here's the deal. There's a special type of quasicrystal where the unit cell is like a tiny nanocircuit of nanodiodes which only allow electrons to flow in one direction through the crystal. Random electromagnetic waves entering the crystal will cause the electrons in the crystal to oscillate at whatever frequency they're hit with, same as the electrons inside the radio antenna, and as long as they're free electrons. But when they do, they find that their direction is blocked one way because of the semiconductors. The whole crystal is made out of semiconductors which only allow electricity to flow across this thing in one way, the entire circuit, the entire crystal. So when these waves come in, they take this free electron, it rides one half of the wave, and then when the other half of the wave tries to dip it back down again, it gets blocked by the diodes inside the crystal structure and can't go back down, so it only absorbs one half of the wavelength, which basically propagates all these little atoms across the crystal in a coherent stream. And it basically just takes the energy right out of the electromagnetic radiation which permeates through all space and time, more strongly so in direct sunlight, of course, because we're getting more direct energy from the sun. Produce much more higher voltage in direct sunlight. It's kind of like a photovoltaic cell, only just the most advanced photovoltaic cell you could possibly imagine. Photovoltaic cells are typically 20% efficient at best. This would be almost 90% efficient. I don't know the exact number, but this allows the crystal basically to produce a constant voltage, seemingly from nothing. But I've proven that the energy doesn't come from nothing. It can't come from nothing. That would violate physical laws that we just went over in the last video. But this energy comes from electromagnetic energy that's already there. It's all around us. It just provides us a way to harness this random energy and convert it into a form that's more usable to us. In this case, electrical voltage. Since we are only absorbing one half of the wavelength, and since not all waves are polarized in the proper direction, less than a third, maybe less than a fourth of the total ambient electromagnetic energy gets converted into electrical voltage. So the amperage is small, but it's comparable to an alkaline electrochemical battery of the same size. The great part is you never have to replace it, and it will work better than a conventional battery in direct sunlight, and it's just in the dark, where it's just running off of radio waves and microwaves and infrared waves and all these other types of waves that are traveling through space and time. It doesn't work quite as well as it would work in direct sunlight. So there you have it. There's a scientific proof of concept, and if you have a refutation of it, I'd like to hear it. And I'll be waiting to hear some offers from people who want the formula for manufacturing these quasicrystal nanodiode batteries, or would like to discuss the possibility of funding a startup company to begin building a silicon refinery able to produce the 99.99999% pure silicon required for the first stage of the manufacturing process. So questions, comments, you know what to do. I expect this video to be highly controversial, so rate it whatever you think it deserves. Thanks for watching.